The Hidden Room. Chapter 1. The House at the End of Birch Lane. I took the night shift because I needed the money. That's the honest reason. Not because I liked working alone, not because I was brave. I was 26, behind on rent, and desperate enough to accept a security job watching an empty house at the end of Birch Lane. The property had been empty for almost a year. The owner, an old woman named Mrs. Albright, had died there. Her family wanted the place watched until it sold because kids kept breaking in. At least, that's what I was told. My supervisor handed me the keys and said, "Just stay in the kitchen. Do your rounds every hour. Don't go into the basement unless you hear water." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. The house looked worse in person. The windows were black. The front garden was overgrown. One upstairs curtain moved slightly, even though there was no wind. Inside, the air smelled stale, like old wood and damp wallpaper. My torch beam caught framed family photos, still hanging in the hallway. Every face seemed to stare too directly at me. The kitchen had been cleared out except for a folding chair, a small table, and an old landline phone. There was no Wi-Fi, no TV, barely any signal, just me, the house, and the sound of the pipes ticking in the walls. At 11:03 p.m., I did my first round. Ground floor first, living room, dining room, utility room, back door locked, then upstairs, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, nothing out of place. But as I turned to leave the master bedroom, I noticed something on the bedside table, a glass of water. It was full. There was no dust on it. Chapter 2. The First Sound. I stood there longer than I should have. The logical part of my brain said someone from the estate agency had probably left it. Maybe a cleaner, maybe my supervisor. But the water looked fresh. Tiny bubbles clung to the inside of the glass. I took a photo of it and sent it to my supervisor. The message didn't send. No signal. Then from downstairs, the landline rang. I walked downstairs slowly. The phone kept ringing, not loud, not dramatic, just a normal, old-fashioned ring that somehow sounded wrong inside that dead house. I picked it up and said, "Hello?" For a few seconds there was only static, then a woman whispered, "You're early." I didn't speak. The line clicked dead. I checked every door again. Front locked, back locked, windows shut from the inside. Nobody was there. But when I returned to the kitchen, my chair had moved. Not far, just a few inches away from the table. Enough that I noticed. And underneath it, scratched into the dusty floor, were 3 words. Not yet sleeping. Chapter 3. The Upstairs Room. I wanted to leave then. I actually had my jacket on and keys in my hand. But I kept thinking about the money, about rent, about how ridiculous I'd sound explaining that a chair moved and a phone call scared me. So I stayed. At midnight, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, barefoot, crossing from one bedroom to another. I stood in the kitchen, holding my torch like it could protect me. Then the footsteps stopped directly above my head. I called out, "Security! If someone's here, you need to leave." No answer. I climbed the stairs one at a time. Each step creaked under my weight. The hallway upstairs was colder than before. My breath came out faintly in front of me. The master bedroom door was open. The glass of water was now empty. Beside it was a wet handprint, too small to be mine. That was when I heard breathing, not mine. It came from the wardrobe, a low, uneven sound. Inhale, pause, exhale. I backed toward the hallway, trying not to make noise. Then something inside the wardrobe shifted. A whisper came through the wooden doors. "Don't open it." Chapter 4. The Rule I Wasn't Told. I ran downstairs and finally got 1 bar of signal by the front window. My supervisor answered on the third ring. I told him someone was inside the house. He went quiet. Then he said, "Where are you?" "The kitchen." "Stay there," he said. "Do not open any closed doors." That was when I remembered the wardrobe. My stomach dropped. I asked him what was going on. He said the previous guard had quit after one shift. The one before him had lasted 2 nights. Then he told me something the agency hadn't put in the job notes. Mrs. Albright hadn't lived alone. Her adult son, Daniel, had lived with her in the basement for years. After she died, nobody found him, not at first. I asked, "What do you mean, not at first?" My supervisor breathed into the phone. They found signs someone had been living down there. Food wrappers, blankets, a mattress. But Daniel was gone. Then the line crackled. Before it cut out, I heard him say one last thing. "If you hear knocking from below, don't answer it." Chapter 5. The basement door. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. I sat in the kitchen with the chair pushed against the wall and watched the basement door. It was painted white, but the paint around the handle was dirty, like hands had gripped it over and over. Then came the first knock, 3 slow taps from the other side. I didn't move. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Then a voice said, "Mum?" It sounded like a man pretending to be a child. Thin, strained, wrong. My hand covered my mouth before I even realized I'd done it. Then the voice changed. It became my supervisor's voice. "Open the door. I'm here." My phone buzzed. A message from my supervisor finally came through. "Do not believe any voices." I looked up from the screen. The basement handle was turning. Chapter 6. The thing in the hallway. I grabbed the chair and wedged it under the basement handle. The turning stopped. For a moment the house was silent. Then something upstairs screamed. Not a horror movie scream, a human scream, raw and sudden. I nearly dropped my torch. I should have stayed in the kitchen, but the scream had sounded like a woman. I climbed the stairs again, every instinct telling me not to. At the top of the landing, all 3 bedroom doors were closed. They had been opened before. A wet trail ran from the bathroom to the master bedroom, bare footprints, small ones. The master bedroom door creaked open by itself. Inside, the wardrobe doors were wide open, empty. On the bed was a photograph I hadn't seen before. Mrs. Albright standing in the garden. Beside her was a thin man in his 30s, and behind them, half hidden in the upstairs window, was a small, pale face. Chapter 7. The Hidden Room. I turned the photograph over. Written on the back in shaky handwriting were the words, "He keeps her downstairs." I felt the air leave my lungs. There had never been any mention of a daughter, no missing child, no police report that I knew of. Then something moved behind the bedroom wall, a soft scraping sound, like fingernails dragging across plaster. I followed the sound to a built-in bookshelf in the hallway. One shelf was cleaner than the others. When I pulled on it, the whole unit shifted slightly. Behind it was a narrow door. It had no handle on my side, only a keyhole. And from behind it, someone whispered, "Please." I used the ring of keys from the agency. The 4th key turned. The door opened into a tiny room between the walls. There was a mattress on the floor. Children's drawings covered the plaster. Most were faded with age. One drawing showed the house. One showed the basement. One showed a tall black shape standing over a girl's bed. Chapter 8. The drawings. The drawings were old, but one looked fresh. The paper was bright white. It showed me a man in a black security jacket standing in the kitchen. Behind me was the basement door, and behind that door something with too many fingers. My radio crackled. It shouldn't have worked. I hadn't even turned it on. A child's voice came through. "He's not Daniel." Then static. I backed out of the hidden room, my legs weak. Downstairs, the chair scraping against the basement door began to move. Slowly, inch by inch. I ran downstairs. The chair was still under the handle, but it had shifted sideways. The basement door was open half an inch. Through the gap, I saw darkness. Then an eye appeared. Wide, bloodshot, human. It blinked at me, then whispered, "You saw the room." Chapter 9. The Phone Call. I slammed my shoulder into the door and forced it shut. The thing behind it laughed. Not loudly, just a dry, quiet laugh, like it had been waiting a long time. I grabbed my phone and called emergency services. This time, the call connected, but the operator already knew my name. The woman on the line said, "You need to leave the house now." I said, "Send police." "They're already outside," she replied. I looked through the front window. The street was empty. No police cars, no flashing lights. Just my own car sitting under the street lamp, with someone in the driver's seat. I dropped the phone. The landline rang again. I didn't answer it. Then the answering machine clicked on by itself. A recording played. It was my voice. Not from earlier, from sometime in the future, and I was screaming, "Don't go outside." Chapter 10. The Last Shift. The basement door burst open. The chair flew across the kitchen. I ran upstairs because the front door wouldn't open. The lock twisted in my hand like it was jammed from the other side. Behind me, something crawled out of the basement. I didn't look back. I only heard the sound, wet hands on tile. I hid in the secret room behind the bookshelf. My breathing sounded too loud. Through the crack in the hidden door, I saw feet pass in the hallway. Bare feet, too long. Then a voice whispered from inside the room with me, "You weren't supposed to find me." I turned my torch slowly. In the corner sat a little girl, but her face was old. The police found me at dawn outside the house. I don't remember leaving. They said I was standing in the front garden, barefoot, holding the old photograph. The house was empty. No basement mattress, no hidden room, no drawings. But 3 days later, I received a voicemail from an unknown number. It was the landline from Birch Lane. A woman whispered, "You're late." Then a child's voice said, "He's coming with you next time."